Thank you, everybody, for being on this Zoom. I'm extremely excited and proud and honored that this ownership has been working on this behind the scenes for a little while. And I know the significance of Ichiro and his accomplishments, and I didn't want to interfere with his Hall of Fame induction this year or his number retirement this year. And so the one contingent factor that I had was that if this was going to happen, that I didn't want to take away anything from his deserving day, and it would have to be done a different day, a different year. And because he deserves to have his own day for all of his acknowledgement and his accomplishments there. I'm happy that ownership is going to acknowledge my 10 years of contribution there. For whatever reason, after I left Seattle and I was traded, I didn't walk away. I think that is something that I hear from fans still occasionally. For whatever reason, the ownership then didn't make this happen. And so I suppose I was a little disappointed that my accomplishments over the 10 years there, especially 1995, I think a lot of people would probably agree that's probably the most important year in Seattle Mariner history to this date. Keeping the team there, it was also my biggest year, winning the Cy Young and going 18-2, and the team being 27-3 in games that I pitched there, pitching the 1-game playoff and pitching the 2 division series wins there against the Yankees, and then finishing second 2 other times in the Cy Young. 1997, the year before I got traded, I was 20-4, coming off a back surgery the year before. And I think I was 35, but showed everybody that I was healthy and still pitching at my level of performance that I expected. And then going into the following year, essentially it was what people call a lame duck year. And I just thought that it could have been handled differently. I've always felt that. But I'm happy that my contributions over the 10 years that I was there are being acknowledged now. It's been a long time, that's for sure. Thank you.
All right, any questions? We'll start with Adam Jude.
Yeah. Randy, thanks for doing this and congratulations.
Thank you.
Since you talked about it there, I think, like you said, a lot of Marin fans look back at your career in Seattle with, obviously a lot of pride. And you mentioned 95, and that's still held up to such high regard. And with Dan coming back, I think all those nostalgic, great feelings are returning again to the fan base here. But just when you look back at 98, since you mentioned it, what were you hoping for then? And maybe what was the difference? What was the gap there that kind of ultimately led to the trade and your departure here?
I don't know. I don't know any of the details behind closed doors. When you got someone that shows that they're healthy, I finished second in the Cy Young in 97, and then I go into the 98 year being my free agent year. I was expecting a contract, or at least contract negotiations. That never happened. It would be one thing if I had not pitched well the year before, then I probably would be pitching for a contract, but I had already shown that I was healthy. And you could throw the age out. I think age is kind of like the cybermetrics of baseball. It's only practical and useful when it is, and it's not always practical. You got to sometimes judge things with your own eyes and your gut and not numbers. And, you know, to me, it was, I gave everything I had every year that I was there. There was a lot of growing pains there when I first got there from Montreal. I got to a team when Junior was, I think, 19 years old, and everybody else on that team was, just kind of finding their way. And there wasn't a lot of expectations in Seattle at that time. We hadn't finished over 500 to that point. And so there was a lot of growing pains, and we all kind of gelled and, got into the 93 year, my first big year, after a conversation with Nolan Ryan, Tom House, and my dad passed away in the off season on December 25th of 92. And I finished second that year in the Cy Young, and things were starting to come together for me. And then, 95 was just a year that was pretty magical for all the players on that team, how we gelled together and played so well. And it really kind of came full circle, because when I got traded from Montreal, I wasn't even the best pitcher that was coming from Montreal. Brian Holman was probably the better pitcher of the three of us, and Gene Harris was the best athlete out of the three of us. It took me a long time to kind of develop into the pitcher that I was. People were patient, and as soon as I had that 93 year, I was able, there's nothing more frustrating for any type of athlete in any sport when you're capable of doing something because you've done something and then you can't repeat it. And that's all I was trying to do. So 93 was the big year. And then going into, the 95 year, after the lockout in 94, and that carried over into the 95 season. And so it was a shortened year. We picked up the season and started, and inevitably it was my best year, one of my best years of my career. And I had some pretty good years. But I remember, warming up for batting practice and the tiles falling from the Kingdome, and people were wondering what's going on. I mean, we weren't even really sure of that. And then all of a sudden you realize things are falling from the Kingdome ceiling there. And that was a lot of adversity for us. And then obviously, it became kind of a political thing with ownership trying to get a new stadium. And so we knew the significance of how important it was. And so looking back at it now, and that story being kind of documented by the Mariners, it worked out. And I'm just thankful that I was a big part of that, and everybody else was a big part of it, and everything just kind of gelled for all the players.
All right, we'll go to Tyler Kepner.
Hey, Randy, congratulations, man.
Thank you. Hey, Tyler.
Good to see you. Two questions. One, was there any significance to wearing number 51? I know in New York you had to wear 41, but any significance to that number? And also, when you first came back, I remember you guys were in like the second trip at Safeco Field. The Diamondbacks came in, and the fans gave, as I recall, the fans gave you a nice standing ovation as you walked out to the bullpen. What did that mean to you, and what does 51 mean?
I don't think there's really, to me, there was really never a significance in the number 51. I just wore it. I wore number 41 because Bernie had the number 51 in New York when I went there. I asked my kids to pick a number. They picked 41 because that's the age that I was in New York. So I wore 41 and I was happy about that. Um, when Ichiro reached out to me, when he joined the Seattle Mariners, he had written a nice letter asking if he could wear the number 51, knowing that I had wore it for the 10 years. And I had no problem, wear it and enjoy it. And then he went on to have a Hall of Fame year, obviously. But there was really never any significance to me wearing the number 51. It kind of over time, I think when you wear it for a majority of your career, and I played 22 years in the major leagues, and I was number 51, so I guess that kind of is how you're recognized in some regards by fans, and that number kind of becomes symbolic with your identity. And then the second question, Tyler, coming back to Seattle, my first time there, I was with the Diamondbacks. I believe it was in 1999, and I believe Tim, that was the first year of the field being opened up. Then,
Correct. Yeah, it was the first week.
Yeah, the second
Yeah,
series
and-
of the
yeah, guys, if you were writing a movie or a book, to have the opportunity to pitch uh, pitch against my former team and, pitch in the new stadium that had been built across the street from the Kingdome. You couldn't have wrote a better script. And things went, this I was nervous, obviously, to say the least. Obviously want to pitch well and pitch a quality game, and to pitch the first shutout there against the Mariners and do well. It was all of that was just kind of a bonus. I just wanted to do well and have a good showing there, and it all worked out pretty well.
Thanks, Randy.
All right, we'll go to Karen Kowach.
Hi, Randy. Congratulations. You mentioned Ichiro sending out that letter to you when he was assigned 51 and not wanting to infringe on his retirement ceremony. Just for you, what did it mean to have Ichiro reach out to you and about the number, and also just what does it mean to kind of share the history with that jersey with another great player in the organization's history?
Well, it meant a lot. It's not something that happens very often, I don't think. And it was well documented. I wasn't expecting anything, I wasn't expecting anything of, a letter from him or anything like that. But I think that's his culture. That's his respect for the game. And you still see that in the game today by Shohei Ohtani bowing and to the umpire before he steps in the batter's box, and Yamamoto and all the other Asian pitchers. I just think that's the way they responded to the game. So, looking back now, I guess it's not too surprising to have a letter like that from him. And, I was honored that he would take the time to do that. And I said, go for it, wear it. And to actually, I just want him to have his own day. That's the most important thing. I'm not trying to take anything away. This is what has it been 15 years now since I've been retired, and for it to finally happen, I'm happy. I'm glad that I was a part of history there, and to have it acknowledged, I guess, in a way that now it will be acknowledged. I'm honored to share it with Ichiro. Had 10 amazing years there. He's probably arguably the best hitter that's ever played in the MLB next to Pete Rose. And that's only because he played a majority of his career in Japan as well. He did things that are, haven't been repeated, probably won't be repeated as a pure hitter standpoint. And I know what he did because I'm a pitcher and I faced him a few times and he did it against me in those one-on-one things, those at-bats that we had. But I'm proud and honored that he's going to have his day, and I'll let the Seattle Mariners work out how they're going to do this. But I'm just glad with the new ownership that that they're doing this. I think, I'm obviously proud that I had a significant role in two different franchises, the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Seattle Mariners, and a lot of people, I think, were hurt and disappointed that when the time came in 2015 that I picked the Arizona Diamondbacks to represent in the Hall of Fame. But I had to think with my statistics in my head and emotions. I had to leave out of the equation. Everything that I did here in Arizona was just a little bit more than what I had done in Seattle. But that's not to take away what I did in Seattle. What I did in Seattle was significant. It really was. And people need to understand that, it wasn't an easy decision. I suppose, there's a lot to be said that if I could have picked Seattle or I could have picked Arizona, but for everything that I did in Seattle, I kind of did a little bit more here in Arizona. I pitched a no-hitter. I pitched a perfect game here. I pitched in playoff games there. I helped the team win the World Series here. I won a Cy Young there. I won 4 here. To me, it was a difficult choice, but it was the right choice because statistically I did more. Now, if we could split the hat on my plaque and put a little bit of an M and a little bit of an A, well, I don't know if we could have done that, but I didn't ever try to disrespect the Seattle Mariners, and I think that's the one thing that's always kind of bothered me. They're thinking with their hearts, they're thinking with the memories of what I did there. And to just disregard and forget about the 10-year contribution that I had there would be, it happened for a while until now, essentially. And, I'm sorry that maybe past ownership in Seattle was thinking that same way. Well, if you're not going to represent us in the Hall of Fame, then I'm not going to retire your number. And I just feel like, I don't know if that's the case. I'm done kind of thinking about that, but it always bothered me when I left there, thinking about the things that people were saying. And it's like, every 5th day I gave everything that I had, I really did. I worked extremely hard, just recently had knee replacement. I've had 3 back surgeries. I got a torn left rotator cuff, and I'm pretty beat up, but I would do it all over again. I left everything on the mound in the Kingdome, and they were very patient with me because, with the years I would strike out, 300 batters, but I also led the league in walks and inconsistency. And so it took me a while to get to that level. And I think it was probably 93. And I just wanted to do the best that I could. And so I think seeing in 93 kind of develop for me, I continued to work extremely hard, and things kind of came together for me. And it was disappointing when I got traded. I remember the day very well, sitting in the doorway of the Kingdome and Lou Piniella coming up and saying you've been traded. You know, it would have been great if you said, hey, we got a contract extension for you. You're going to stay here for 2 more years with an option or whatever. You know, anything to keep me there, you know?
All right, we'll go to Dan Hansen.
Hey, Randy, congratulations, well deserved. So, two questions. At one point in your career with the Mariners, did you know something special was starting? And two, I know it's still pretty fresh, but have you had any former teammates reach out and offer congratulations or anything?
Well, this just happened right now. I lost my mom last year, so I heard from Jay and Junior and Edgar last year when I lost my mom. And so, if they reach out, that's great. I'll see them later this year, I'm assuming, when I go up for Ichiro's number retirement. But I would say, obviously 95 was the pinnacle. I was gone in 2001 when they won 114 or 116 games. That was a pretty special year for the Mariners there. But while I was there, I would say it was the 95 year. I mean, the fact that we were playing in the Kingdome that holds 55,000 people, and on average we would get, somewhere between 20 and 25,000 people spread out throughout that massive stadium. And then when we started winning, more people were showing up, and it was, becoming the place to be. And the energy there was electric, and the fans were amazing, and the players fed off that, and there was a lot of electric games. To me, 95 kind of came full circle. I got traded from Montreal with Gene Harris and Brian Holman for Mark Langston. And then I remember when the season was over in Arlington, Texas, we were boarding the plane and we were told that the Angels had lost, and now we had the same record as them, and there would be a 1-game playoff in the Kingdome the following night, and I would be pitching that, and I would be pitching against Mark Langston. This is all, if you were going to write a book or make a movie, this is like great stuff. and that game was what you would hope it would be as a fan. You're seeing, a past legend that did great things for that franchise, and now someone currently doing it, and now they're both pitching at their best for, I think it was like 5 or 6 innings. It was 0-0. And it was an electric ballpark that day, and we finally broke through and got a few runs, and I, kept them at bay, and we added on, and we ended up winning the 1-game playoff, and then the rest was history. That well documented, where we won that game, and we got on a plane and did a little bit of celebrating, and then got on a plane and went to New York. And unfortunately, I wasn't able to pitch for a while, but came back, and Kingdome was rocking for Game 3. I pitched that game. We won Game 4, and Lou asked if I'd be available for Game 5, and obviously it's well documented. I came out of the bullpen in Game 5, and we won. It was the first big pinnacle for the Seattle Mariners for their history, winning the division series. And the 95 year, I think any player that was there would probably point to, whether it's Junior or Jay or Omar or Edgar, or Dan. I think they would probably, have a significant, opinion towards the 95 season, because it was the pinnacle that kept that team there. It gave the Mariners a chance to get a new stadium and do many more great things after that.
All right, we'll go to Zach Mason.
Hey, congratulations, Randy.
Thank you.
When you struck out 300 batters in a season for the first time in 93, on the day that you did it, you weren't wearing number 51, you were wearing number 34 to honor Nolan Ryan's retirement. Does the fact that you did that and reflecting on that, does that shape your thinking at all on what a jersey number can mean to people, what that meant to you to honor him in that way, and what this might mean to other people?
Well, like I said, you know, wearing a number is, if you've been around long enough, which I thankfully was playing 22 years, I pretty much wore number 51 my whole career, you know, outside of New York, which was 41, and I gave you the reason for that. And obviously, uh, in Arizona and even in San Francisco, where I won my 300th game. A number is kind of symbolic. I mean, you know, and I didn't probably understand that the significance early on, but as you play 10, 15, 20 years, it's not like, you know, it's like something that overwhelms you, but you know, that's your number, you know, and so wearing number 34, you know, I was paying my respects to someone that, you know, has meant a lot to the game and is the greatest power pitcher in the game. And, you know, I have great reverence for him and many of the power pitchers that have played the game. The one great thing that the Arizona Diamondbacks and Jerry Colangelo did when I was playing here was, as I was going up the strikeout board passing people, he had all those people. I think it was like the top 20 wherever I was. And every game, I would go up that ladder, if you will. And that's when I became a little bit more of a historian from a pitcher standpoint, understanding the pitchers that I was passing. And the one common denominator that I had that they had was the effort you had to give in order to get there. I knew what it took firsthand, so I knew that they had to give the same effort, regardless of the era that they were doing it in. And I thought that was a nice touch by the owner that I played for here in Arizona. And then eventually, you know, passing Clemens and becoming second all time to only Nolan Ryan. And I think wearing number 34, you know, he also got hurt in the Kingdome, and that was well documented. I remember that day pretty vividly too, where he was pitching against Dave Fleming, I believe, a young left-handed pitcher for the Seattle Mariners. I could be wrong, but I think that was right. And Nolan was pitching and, you know, threw a pitch and something wasn't right and you knew it wasn't right. And he meant a lot to me because by that time, my career had already turned around, and without his impact, along with Tom House, I would have never had the career that I had, because I had lots of impact from other pitching coaches along the way. But it was one small little thing that I needed that was a mechanical thing that inevitably made me become consistent and all my momentum going towards home plate. And that's what I was lacking. And I got that information from Tom House and Nolan Ryan. And then we went on and did a book and a video. And I think I'm just trying to pay respect to Nolan. And I remember when he hurt his elbow, I went over during the game when the doctor was talking to him and sent my regards and just wanted to make sure that he was okay. And he meant a great deal to me. I've talked to Tom House recently in the last couple of months. He meant a great deal to me, and I haven't forgot those things. You know, when I stepped over the line, I was very animated and emotional, and a lot of people might not want to be in my path, but I also never forgot the places that I've been and the people that have helped me get where I've been, and that nor will I ever forget that. And that's why I've always felt like Seattle had a big impact on my career. And when you're pitching for the fans, and then a fan says, well, he left Seattle. I didn't leave Seattle. I was traded. That bothers me. It bothered me then. I'm over it now. And or why I would go into the Hall of Fame representing a team where I won a World Series and an MVP and 4 Cy Youngs and did some magical things here. I did some magical things in Seattle, but it was a different time in my career. At that time, that was the height of my career doing those things in Seattle. I never envisioned another level of doing things, but yet there was, and I was a part of it. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful to have every team that I play for. A question that often comes up was, which was your favorite team? Every team that I played for had significant importance, whether it was Montreal taking the chance on me, drafting me out of USC and believing in me, and then being in Montreal for a short period of time, Seattle letting me grow as a person and a pitcher, and then going to Houston. Hands down, that was the best 2 months of my career. I never had 2 months like that in Arizona when I won the Cy Youngs. And then going to Arizona and doing the things that I did there. I enjoyed my 2 years in New York. I really did. And then going back to Arizona and recovering from back surgery and showing them that I was healthy. And then being about 8 or 9 games away from 300, that motivated me to continue to work hard, even at the age that I was, 46, 47 years old. Well, not 47, I retired when I was 44 to 45 years old then. And when I was done in Arizona, and then, going to San Francisco, that was important. I got to be around a young Tim Lincecum who was successful already, and Barry Zito, Jonathan Sanchez, a young left-handed pitcher, Matt Cain, and help them a little bit. And then win my 300th game for that organization, have my family and friends around at games a little bit more, having grown up in the Bay Area outside of Oakland. Every team was significant, but the body of my work was done in Seattle and in Arizona. But that doesn't mean the other stops along the way weren't significant. They were. Every stop along the way has importance and memories, great memories that I take from those cities and those organizations. And Seattle ranks right up there with it. It's the one city that I played for the longest. It's where I had growing pains, but I finally grew into the pitcher that I was hoping to be someday. And I was able to show that there at the most important time in 95 and in 96 before I had my back surgery, and then come back in 97 and rebound from back surgery, and go 20-4. And then in 98, well, that's been well documented. It is what it is. I knew well before the 98 season that sports is a business. And when I got traded from Montreal when I was 24, 25 years old, I thought I'd be in Montreal forever, and that wasn't the case. It's a business. They need production from you, and I wasn't giving it to them. So I went to Seattle and learned how to pitch there, and then I gave them pitching. And then for whatever reason that I don't know, I got traded. That's part of the game, but I didn't walk out the doors. That's a disappointing scenario that anybody in Seattle would think after everything that I gave there, you know.
All right, we have time for a couple more questions. We'll start with Brady Farkas.
Randy, congratulations. Now that this has happened, you're kind of reconciled with this ownership group and given Dan's presence. Do you think we'll see you around the organization more often? We saw you at spring training this year. Do you think we'll see you more often?
Well, I hope so. I mean, they've invited me to come out. Anytime they've invited me to come out, I brought my son out to a spring training game in Seattle a couple years ago. When the Diamondbacks asked me to come and do something, I drop everything and do it. I'm enjoying my life after baseball now. I got a coffee table book out now from eight trips to Africa, and I enjoy photography now, and I travel the world. And when I first retired, I went for the first 9 years until the year I retired, 2010, till about COVID. I was very active with the USO and doing a lot of trips with them and supporting our men and women around the world. And after COVID, less trips were happening. And so then I started taking my own trips with my camera and really enjoyed the photography aspect of it. And I really enjoyed Africa and going there and taking pictures. And I was lucky enough to have an exhibit at the Fenimore Art Gallery in Cooperstown, New York for 7 months. And then that was a success. And then I had a couple here in Arizona. And then from there, a book came out of it. And so for me, I'm just diving into a passion that I've had since college. I studied photojournalism and I enjoy that. It's the closest thing to baseball for me. I plan and I research, and when I'm doing something, taking pictures, I'm about as focused as I was when I was, pitching. And that's how I kind of correlate it. But I enjoy being around the ballpark. I bring my granddaughter there, my family, and I haven't missed an important event whenever I'm healthy. I just had knee replacement surgery a year and a half ago, so I've been recovering from that, and I'm feeling pretty healthy now.
All right, we'll go to Tyler Kepner.
Where's all the hard questions?
Looks like Tyler.
Oh no, I got. Yeah, Randy. Yeah, just real quick. You're the last guy to win 300 games. Do you think it'll happen again?
Well, I think the closest person that could do it is Justin Verlander, and I guess only time will tell. But even if he should win, then I don't think anybody will after that. And if there is someone after Justin Verlander, if he does win 300, I think it's going to take a long time. I think the game has changed to where wins aren't as significant for a starting pitcher in today's game because they're not out there long enough to put themselves in position to win a ball game. You pitch 5-6 innings, turn the lineup over 3 times, and your bullpen's getting warmed up now, and you're coming out after 5 or 6 innings after 95 pitches. And in order to win 20 games in a season, you got to pitch a few complete games. You got to be out there for 7 or 8 innings and kind of get those 2 or 3 wins that you otherwise wouldn't have gotten if you were only pitching 5 or 6 innings. And those are significant. And that doesn't happen in today's game as much. So I think, only time will tell. But I think if someone's going to do it, it'll be Justin Verlander. And then after that, I don't think you'll probably see that happen again. And I think it's a little disappointing to see that not have a chance of happening because I think there's a lot of great talented pitchers out there. I enjoy watching the game, and every team has, dominating pitchers. But I think the way that a lot of starting pitchers are used in today's game is that they're not going to know how difficult it is to throw that 10 or 15 more pitches where the go-ahead run or the tying runs on second base, because they're taken out of the game. And now if you're left out there, and those were the growing pains that I went through in Seattle, and that is what made me, value winning ball games and being able to be focused and understanding that, the last 10 pitches, the last 15 pitches of that inning are going to be the most significant, because when you come out of the game, everything's out of your control now. You're in control of the game based on what you do. And so I always tried to value that a great deal. And the mental aspect of the game elevated in my game because it had to. Because when you were pitching against another great pitcher, and he might come out, well, you might score a run possibly off their bullpen, and now you needed to preserve that 1 or 2 runs. And so I think that today's pitchers may not, understand how they're not maybe pushing their full talent level because they're not out there and have to pitch at another level.